Okay, just for giggles, this is the whole pattern, and if I was gonna cast it without a core, I would have to cast it like this. And as you can see, it's substantially taller than half of my mold. So I don't think it would work out too good. I mean, it could, but I prefer not to do it that way. You would have to ram it all the way up and strike it off, and then dig it out around the parting line, and then set the drag on top. Well, you would have to flip it over because this is upside down. This is actually going to be the bottom of the mold eventually. So you'd have to kind of do it backwards. I haven't messed with it, and I'm not gonna try it just for giggles. So instead of doing it like that, what we're gonna do is use a half mold, and we're gonna lay it in there like that. And so it'll come out much better, I think. And this, I mean, it'll be 2 pieces instead of 1, but I think that will work out better for me. Okay, let's get started. All right, so I'm gonna use this half. I'm gonna put it fairly close to one side so I have room on this side to put my my well and my runners and my end gates. But for right now, I'm gonna have to dig those in later because I didn't print out anything out. So I'm gonna hit everything with a parting disc real good, so it'll separate. And I'll be able to get. I have not sanded this smooth or anything, so it's still gonna have like ridge lines and stuff from the printing process on it, and it'll come out on the final casting, and it's not an issue. I don't care about that. The only thing it would really cause problems with is these vertical surfaces. It might catch the sand when you're trying to withdraw it. So we're going to hit it with a liberal amount of parting dust, and then before we try to withdraw the pattern from the sand, I'll give it some good wraps on the side or all around. What that'll do is it'll kind of compress the sand around the outside of the pattern a little bit, and that will it'll make a little bit of a gap. Also, I'm not particularly concerned about the surface quality. I mean, I don't want any like big holes or nothing, so I'm not gonna riddle the sand over the mold this time. I'm just gonna get it loose in there and ram it up real good. So I'm not going to riddle the sand in there if I was trying to capture some nice surface details or something. Like if I was trying to catch this 2023 that's on this medallion, which I'm going to do here shortly. Maybe not today, but right now I'm trying to use this to get my my new foundry, or my forge that I built. Trying to build, the transition is to go from the blower to the burner, and then that burner into the forge. So making a ribbon burner. I didn't show you the forge before, but it'll be interesting. So for what we're gonna do is we're just gonna pack this, ram this up real nice. And the hollow bottom, we're gonna get sand in there. And what I'll have to do is I'll have to dig it out before I ram up the drag. That'll keep me from having to separate it. So we'll just ram this up, get it real close to the pattern. You don't want it moving around. We'll have to dig the hollow part out. There's actually a ridge inside for the 2-inch pipe to set on. So we need to try to capture that if we can, but that'll be on the inside. Not a big deal. So I'm gonna ram it up nice and close, but if it doesn't, I don't need to get inside the pattern to do this. Get it around the edges. Make sure it's packed into the coat so that the coat will hold it when you start picking it up and moving it around. All right, let's get some more sand on that. I have a shovel or a little spade I could be using. This works pretty good too. And it's also good for striking off the coat. Let me put some gloves on. Where are my gloves? This isn't absolutely necessary, it's just this petrol bond will stick to my hands. I just made a hole. Let's see. I think it's not gonna, well. All right, there we go. More sand. car's filled up. All right, now we can strike it off and fill in any low spots. Now we got to get all this excess sand off of the board before we flip it over. I'll flip it toward me, or I'll flip it away from the camera, or toward the camera, so you can see the pattern on the inside when I stand it up. And then I'll clean all this extra sand up. Okay, you can see the pattern there. We get all this extra sand out of the way. Okay. All right, let's put it on its back. All right, now I need to clean out this, this mold here a bit. So what I want to do is I need to make, there's going to be a line here where the where the edge of the mold or the pattern is. So I kind of want to capture that. So I'll go ahead and kind of put this on there as a straight edge, and then I'll dig that out. Okay. Now to get all that sand out of there. Because remember, there's a flange on the back of the, so it's solid across the bottom. So when I try to withdraw this, I have to have a clean path for the pattern to come out of the mold. Otherwise, it's gonna catch the sand and tear it up, and then I'll have to repair it. And I don't want to do that. So we're gonna try to make a clean path. We have to probably bevel it out a little bit. Let me turn my air compressor on. what I'm doing is I'm digging out to the very edge of the pattern, so the edge is exposed. That way when I withdraw it, there won't be any sand to catch on the lip. But anyway, when I ram up the drag, it'll fill in the gap. And that way when I separate the two halves of the mold, I'll be able to lift the pattern cleanly out. You see I've beveled it out a little bit too. I might bevel it some more, just to make it a cleaner lift. Straight lines, they call it, what do they call it? Anyway, if you have it vertical, and it's hard to withdraw the mold, so what they do is they add an included angle. They call that draft to help. So as soon as you move the mold even slightly, because of the draft being beveled like this, then as soon as you separate it, you get separation everywhere on the mold, instead of having to drag the vertical sides of the mold up the vertical sides of the pattern and dragging sand and whatever else may be caught between the mold and the pattern up out of the mold. If you include some draft angle in there, then you can get clean separation. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now we got to work on this side. This side has an included radius on the inside of the hole, and I got to capture that. But I have to get past that and the edge of the mold to get this to come out clean. So I'm working on that right now. Now, if I had made a pattern or a core to imitate the inside of this, I could do away with a lot of this, but a lot of this would be included in the core. So what I would have done is I would have made a core to imitate this negative space that's in here, but I would have added, maybe a piece of 2-inch pipe sticking out here and another block of wood or whatever, and then the core would incorporate that piece of 2-inch pipe in that extra piece of base, so that when I withdrew the pattern, I could set the core back in there, and then just the negative space, the metal would go around the core and not fill that space that the core takes up inside the pattern. So right now we're doing it this way in order to capture all the detail that I want to capture on this. It'll just take a few more minutes, and I'll probably fast forward this part of the video so you don't have to sit through all the tediousness, but you should be able to see what I'm doing on the camera. So all right, so there's the edge of the mold or a pattern. Okay, now we're just gonna clean this, bevel it back a little bit more, clean it up a little bit so that the pattern can come out clean. And if I get a little bit of flash or whatever, like in between the parts, I might have a little, I can clean it up. I can cut excess material off the finished casting instead of having to add material. I'll show you what I mean whenever we get the casting out of the sand. All right, but that looks like we got that. Now we just have to get this extra sand out of the mold. And that's why we wanted the air compressor. All right, so I can dump most of that out. Okay. rest, the little sticky pieces, we'll hit with the air a little bit. Okay, we'll hit this, make sure we don't have any loose sand in there. I think that will be fine. All right, so just to show you, you can see the lines from the 3D print. The sand will capture a lot of that, and it'll turn up on the casting. But you know, I can sand that and buff it or whatever. I'm not going to do that. It's not that important. But just so you could see. I'll show you after that we get the casting out of the sand what that looks like. Okay, so I need to do now, well not now, but what I'm going to do is dust it all with parting dust again, because we want the two mold halves to separate. Get all this fresh sand that I put in here, get that liberally with some parting dust to keep the two halves from sticking. I'm going to use cast aluminum, not extruded aluminum. Extruded aluminum will shrink more than cast aluminum does. I'm not sure exactly how much shrinkage I'm going to have, so I'm going to use the cast aluminum anyway, so I don't get as much shrinkage. All right. Okay, now, again, excuse me, not super critical that I capture a lot of detail on the inside. Well, unless you want to see the lines I was talking about. We'll riddle it in there anyway, just for giggles. So I'm gonna riddle it through this strainer. It's just make sure that there's no clumps in there. Gonna put it in there maybe an inch or two deep. That way when I compress it, all that loose sand will be pushed into all the little cracks and crevices, and you'll be able to see the lines from the 3D print. I've cast fiberglass molds before, and you can see the pattern from the fiberglass mat in the casting. It's pretty cool how much detail it'll capture. All right. Some clean sand in the middle. Okay. Little piece of wood there. Get that out of the sand. All right, side. Make sure we get this middle part where the pattern is real good. Pack it down. Get the edges. We want it to hold the flask too. So when we separate the two halves, it comes out nice and even. and that, you know, chunks of it don't fall down into the pattern. I need a pan with a nice lip to do this on, so I'm not losing my sand to the floor. I'm not losing that much sand, but still, the floor's a mess. I can't sweep it up and put it back in here because of the trash that's on the floor right now. I have to do this twice. I'm not going to film the other half, but I have to do this twice to make the two halves, which I'll then be able to bolt together. So right now, I haven't even fired up the furnace yet. So last time I made a aluminum melt, it only took about 30 minutes to heat up a crucible of aluminum to make the last casting, which turned out pretty well. So I won't fire it up, and then I'll probably turn it off and let it be cooling between castings, since I may have enough sand, excuse me, to make a second mold out of that wood flask, but I'm not gonna try it. I'd probably get 3/4 of the way through it before I realized I didn't have quite enough sand. And I could make another custom flask, but then again, that would take more time than I want to put into this. I'll just make a second casting with this one after we pull the first casting out of the sand. I'll do all this all over again to make the second casting, and from there I will drill the holes. I think I'm gonna drill both halves. I'll drill through both. I'll clamp the two halves together. Drill through both with the tap drill, and then one will get re-drilled with a larger bit. So I'll tap one side, and then the other side, the bolt will just pass through it. That way, I don't need to have a nut to hold it together. It will just pass through one side and thread into the other. I've thought about mounting options. I really don't have a way to mount the fan, so what I could do is leave enough studs sticking out on one side in order to maybe mount it on those studs. I don't know, just thinking. Hadn't really given it that much thought. So, always thinking things I could do better next time if I chose to do this again, which hopefully I won't have to do it again. But right now the idea is to just bolt the two halves together, but I'm thinking I could probably mount the fan from those same studs that are holding the two halves together once they're bolted together. And I'll probably use some kind of sealant between the two halves, although it's probably not necessary, being as it doesn't need to be airtight. I think I'll be losing efficiency on the fan anyway, reducing it down to 2-inch pipe, but I don't think it'd hurt anything if it didn't have a gasket, but I'll probably put some RTV or something in there anyway, just for giggles. The true test is when we go to separate the two halves. If they separate cleanly, then we're going to be good to go. But this half is going to get some vents, and we got to cut in a riser, which I may do now. I think I'm going to use this piece of 3/4 inch EMT. I'm going to go ahead and pretty sure if I put right here, I should miss the pattern. And then I'll be able to put the well underneath this. Should be far enough away from it so I'm not hitting it. But we'll cut through till we get to the drag, and we may be into the drag now. Getting the sand out of it. Let's see if we're through. Gonna go down to there, and go a little bit more, maybe another inch. Okay. All right. That's going to be the sprue. I'm going to put it back in there just for now and kind of roll it around, kind of give it a little bit of a taper. That's a pretty big hole, but we'll probably still have to maybe cut it out some more before we put the two halves back together. Let me get my sand cleaned up. Broom. we can get some good separation. If we can get it cleanly separated, we will be golden. All right, that looks good. Okay. And as you can see, where my well is going to go. I have to dig that out some more. But so far so good. So to dig out the well, I need a spoon, but I don't have a spoon back here. So we'll use that spade that I said I had. And we'll dig out a well. What the well does is it catches dirt, debris, slag, whatever might be entering the mold when you pour it down through the sprue. Okay, and it catches loose sand and stuff like that that may be in the sprue, or when you go to pour the molten metal in here. So a well never hurt anybody. It's extra aluminum that you have to pour in addition to your whatever the volume of your part is. But I think it's worth it. All right, let me dump that out of there. When I get done, once I've got it dug out deep enough and round enough, and I get all the sand cleaned up, I'll smooth it out and pack it with my finger. Just pack it real good with my finger so there's not any loose sand there. All right, so now I need gates and a runner. So I think I'm gonna in-gate right here on this lug, and I'm gonna make a runner and in-gate to that lug. So we'll dig it down about 1/2 inch. Okay, and make it nice and wide so the metal can flow in there. Now, yes, I'm gonna have to cut that off and maybe reshape that lug with a grinder to make it look pretty, but that's okay, I can do it. It's not gonna remove metal from the mold, so it'll be plenty. All right, it's probably maybe 3/8 of an inch still. Let me go down a little bit more. I'll have to cut it off with a hacksaw or a fiend saw anyway, or a reciprocating saw to get it, to cut the sprue and the runners off of it. Who knows? I may try it differently with the next casting. Well, for now, this is what we're gonna do. Okay, some loose sand up there. We'll blow all that out in a minute. So what I need is another in-gate here. I'm gonna just kind of sketch it out in the sand for now, and then I'm gonna make a runner to the well. Okay, make it nice and wide. Okay, so the metal can flow quickly. I don't want it to go real slow and then solidify in there. So I want it to be fairly deep and wide in order to facilitate the metal running down in there. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let me get this end gate dug out. Dig this down a little bit more. We'll clean up the runners a little bit more, or the end gates a little bit more after we pull the mold out, or the pattern out. For right now, we just want to compact any loose sand that we may have inadvertently caused. All right, so next part, we got to pull the pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a good wrap all over, as I said before. See, right now I'm hitting down, so it's kind of compacting the sand beneath it a little tiny bit. And I'm going to hit it like this too. Kind of compact that sand. Same thing on this side. You can see the mold is, or the pattern is moving around in the mold a little bit. So I think I'm just about ready to pull. Ideally, I'd like to hit it in these two directions too, but there's really nothing to hit. So I'm going to try to extract this pattern. I'm trying to grab it on the inside and use my fingers to push up on the edges of the flask. A little bit more rappy-do-rappy. I want you to see if you look very closely, you can see there's a little separation between the edge of the pattern and the mold now. And that's what you want, you know, to be able to have a lift it out clean. That little seam, obviously the bigger the better, but at the same time, you don't want to go overboard with it. All right, see it moving around a little bit more. Let me see if I can get it out. I didn't put any screws or anything in it to help me lift it out, so I'm just kind of doing it like this. Try it again. It might roll out. It's coming. See here where the vertical sides are pulling that sand up. I'll have to fix that. Not perfect. I might be able to fix it. We'll see here. Just gonna have to doctor it up a little bit. The top didn't come out too bad. I didn't get too much. Now, next time when I make this mold, I might add a little draft, make it a little bit more angled like this. Same with the lugs. That's what happened, is these vertical lugs caught on it on the way out. Now, if I don't replace this sand that has been displaced, then what it'll do is the aluminum will fill those cavities, okay? So it's not a total loss. The aluminum will fill those cavities, and then I'll just have to hit it with the grinder or the sander in order to reshape it after the casting process is done. So it's not a total loss, and I'm not, like I said, not particularly concerned about the exterior appearance of this transition. It's more of a functional part rather than a aesthetic part. So if it has a few defects around the outside, it will not hurt my feelings too much. But it just kind of sucks to not get a good casting. Okay. At least not get a perfect casting anyway. All right, that's not gonna work. So anyway, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stand this up. I'm gonna blow the loose sand out and touch up what remains so it doesn't fall into the mold while we're pouring metal. And I'm going to punch some vent holes in this opposite side so that the expanding gases and smoke from the petrol burn will have a way to get out. And where is my piece of rod? I got a piece of aluminum TIG rod that I use for punching vent holes, and I don't see it. It was just in here. There it is. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch these through these vents or these lugs right here, so that, well, actually it needs to go on the other side. So I'm not going to punch them on this side. This is the bottom. So we just need to make sure all this is good to go. So I still have a flat right there for the drill the hole. I'm still good over here and here. Gonna fix that in-gate a little bit, smooth it out, and I think we are good to go on the bottom. Okay, well, you see all this, like right here, I'll use this. Right here where the sand broke away, and right here where the sand broke away, this is going to be filled with metal when we cast it. And all this area here will be filled with metal when we go to make the casting. So the casting, when it comes out, it's going to have extra metal around those areas. Okay, so let's put this back on its back. And now we'll look at punching those vent holes. So I want vent holes. You can see the impression of the mold here and here. I'm going to punch these through right there, just so that the molten metal and the gases, whatever gases may be trapped inside the mold, excuse me, will have some place to go when the metal is running into the mold. Okay. Blow those holes out. In case there's any loose sand in there. All right, again, just for your, so you can see. You can see on the, you can see the swirls, you see those swirls? That's from the 3D printed model. You can see them down there. That is going to come out on the finished casting. So just for giggles, we'll see how that comes out. All right, so I think we're ready to fire up the furnace. So I'm going to pause tape. All right, I'm about to pull the crucible out and make this for heating up some of my tools. So I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to open the lid, scrape the dross off the top, and then I'm going to set it on the linen block over there with my pouring shank. And I'll make right, there you go. There's a pour. We'll see how it turned out in a minute. It's time to see how we did. I made a little keychain for my daughter. That's what that second flask was. It came out really nice. I'm really happy with it. Let's see how we did on this. It looks pretty good. Looks really good. Inside is nice. Backside is nice. I mean, you see here where I was talking about where the sand fell out? Where the sand fell out and it was filled in with metal? I can either leave it like that or shape it to my heart's desire. Also here. That's from withdrawing that vertical, this vertical edge here, trying to pull that out of the mold, or out of the pattern of the mold. So really, casting wise, it looks usable. It won't be the most beautiful casting in the world. We'll see how the second half comes out. All right, video number 3. Let's try this again. I didn't get the separation part of my core fell out. Let's see if we can do it this time. I think I was a little rough separating them, so see if we can do it this time without losing our core. It's fairly good. It's better than before. We'll run with it. All right, you guys have seen the rest of this. All right, we're unboxing the second half. So far, so good. It looks pretty good, except for that I had a bad corner on the inside. But as you can see, it's still plenty hot. So we are trying not to burn ourselves at the moment. All right, that's the second half. Looks pretty clean on the inside anyhow, except for this. We had this corner of the form, or the core broke off, so I'll either have to clean that up or leave it as is. But it came out better as far as the rest of the periphery. As you can see, I had a little bit more breakage on this one, but this one's a bit cleaner. So, looks pretty good. I'll get back to you.